Hey guys, welcome back to the 4-1 Wheat. Today we're going to talk about how to make your Windows PC run faster. Now, there's a bunch of different things you can do, but what I'm going to talk about is programs that are built in within Windows that allow you to speed your computer up faster than it may be running, especially if you've never done any of these tools or used any of these tools before. So the first thing we want to do is we want to check our hard drive size. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on Start and select Computer. Now yours might say My Computer if you're in XP, and Vista will say Computer. Now the first thing I want to look at is this blue bar. This blue bar tells me that I do not have a bunch of things on my hard drive clogging it up. If this bar is red, then you really have a bigger issue than you need to worry about, and there's a lot of things you need to delete. Now I want to right click on this, but you have to make sure it's highlighted first and select Properties. When you select Properties, you should get a window like this, and it's going to be a little pie chart that shows you what disk space is taking up and what disk space is free. So the blue is used space, where I have files, programs, music, pictures, things like that. And the pink is free space within my hard drive, so space I can still put things onto. So we're going to come back to this screen in a second, but before we do anything here, the next step would be to remove unneeded programs. So I would click, to get to that, you would click on Start, click on Control Panel, and then click Uninstall a Program. This is going to bring up a full list of programs I have installed on my computer. Now by default it's generally arranged by name, so it's going to be the name of the program, and then at the bottom obviously A through Z. Now one thing I like to do first of all is go over here on the size icon and make sure the size, the greatest program, is all the way at the top. So right here I have the Star Wars Old Republic games taking up 18 gigabytes. That's a big file. If you have games or programs you're not using on your computer, that would be the first place to start. Go by size and remove things you no longer use. So if I didn't play that game anymore, or didn't have it and didn't need it, I would remove that first of all, because that's the biggest file I have, or biggest program, excuse me. The next thing, I would just come down the list and remove things that I don't use from the largest file to the smallest file. Now I want you to be very careful, because something like Java Development Kit, or excuse me, not that, the Java updates, that's things you have to have in order to view certain websites or in order to run certain programs. So Adobe Reader is to read PDF files. Well, I'll make a video specific to PDF files and things like that here in the future. But if you have that, you definitely don't want to remove that. You don't want to remove Java, and I'm just going to select by name again. You never want to remove any of the Adobe programs, probably nothing of Java and nothing of Flash. Now Flash is generally located under Adobe as well, that's why I mentioned that. Flash, Adobe Reader, Adobe Air, and Java are the three main programs to use, or 3 or 4, to view websites and programs and videos. So if you're watching this on YouTube, which probably you are because that's where this video is, I can almost guarantee you will have Adobe Flash Player installed. You have to have Adobe Flash Player installed on a computer in order to watch YouTube videos. The next thing, just you know what programs you have, but I want to point out, if you click the installed date and change this and put the oldest date up towards the top, this is probably the date you purchased the computer, or at least that it was installed. So if you bought a computer pre-installed already, that's the date that the programs were installed on. Generally speaking, there's a lot of stuff that comes loaded on Windows computers that you can remove. If you have a Dell computer, you're going to have some stuff that's listed as Dell under Publisher. So I only have one thing listed, but this is an Alienware, so I have a few Alienware programs right here specific to my machine. If you had a Compact or an HP or a Sony, you're going to have programs listed under that Publisher name specific to those computers. Going back down the list again, by name, excuse me, you can go through and see something. One thing I want to stress, if you don't know what it is, you probably don't want to remove it. And I haven't looked at this before now, so I'm just going to pick Microsoft Visual C++. Now a lot of this I have for programming, but if you have Microsoft Visual C++ with some like SQL Server, you might not want to remove that, because that's something Windows has running in the background to work with Windows itself. So first step, make sure you have programs removed that you no longer use or no longer need. If you know what it is, especially toolbars, and you don't use them, definitely get rid of toolbars. Those are one thing that can definitely slow up a computer and definitely a web browser. My next suggestion would be to go into Documents and delete anything in here that's definitely taking up a lot of space. Pictures, videos, music, especially if you're not using any of that anymore, that can eat up a lot of space. Or get an external hard drive to back it up on. That way you can get it off of your computer. Now going back here, Windows has files within itself that you can remove that are no longer needed. These are known as system files that Windows just kind of bloats up with over time. It's very common. Even Macs do it. They just clean them up on their own. Windows, you can set to do this, but it's good to go in and actually do it yourself. So with the same screen, we're going to click Disk Cleanup. This is going to calculate what's in Windows that we can remove and come up with a list. Now, I do this very frequently. My rule of thumb is the more often you use your computer, the more often you need to do this. So I probably do it once a week, if not, or once a month, if not once a week. And my suggestion is to check every box in this little window and select OK. And this is just going to delete all of those files that are the Windows system files that you no longer need. Temporary files, internet files, archive files within Windows, stuff from the recycle bin that you've deleted that didn't actually delete just yet. And then once you've completed that, I would suggest go into Tools and select Defragmentation, and this is going to remove, or not remove, but move files on your hard drive. So for instance, when you download a song, if that song is 4 megabytes, when you download it, it may put 2 megabytes on this side of your hard drive and then 2 megabytes on this side of your hard drive. And when you go to play that song, your computer has to get those two files and piece them together in order to play that song. When we defragment our hard drive, you want to make sure you select the C drive. Just select Analyze, and that's going to tell you if you need to defrag it or not. Notice mine says I have 1% fragmented. So if I wanted to, I could defragment my hard drive and make sure that number turned into 0. So if after analyzing, I would defrag. This is where it gets a little tricky on how often you do this. Different people have different suggestions, so take it for what it's worth. My suggestion is do this at least once or twice a year, if not once a month, depending on how often you're actually moving files, deleting files, and downloading files. And again, the more often you do it, the less often you have to, because the more your hard drive stays clean. Same thing with the disk cleanup. So once you're through with all of that, my next suggestion would be to check Windows Update and make sure you're fully updated within Windows. So to get to there, you would click on Start, go to All Programs, and then at the bottom of this list, before all the folders, it says Windows Update. So this is going to bring up a wizard, if you will, within Windows, and my suggestion, select Check for Updates. Windows will hit the internet, check for updates, make sure that there's nothing out there that you don't need to install, and then it'll tell you you have these many files you need to install. Now, if I had something to update, which I'm sorry, I apologize for not, it would say important and recommended or suggested. I don't know which word they use. If it's important, you definitely want to have it. If it's suggested or recommended, that's something within your computer's hardware or software that Windows found that they say you need to update. My suggestion, check them all except for the language packs. If you haven't done this in a while, there's going to be a ton of stuff. And then when you get through updating Windows, when you click on Start, there's going to be a little yellow triangle right here that says Install Updates and Shut Down. If you've never done that, it's going to take a while, just be aware. But once you keep that up to date, Windows will run a lot smoother and quicker and overall faster with everything we've talked about. If you don't have any updates to do, my other suggestion, anytime you do run disk cleanup or defrag, is to just restart your computer. And that's kind of like a fresh state. And anytime Windows is running slow, if you just simply restart it, it's going to speed up by getting rid of closing programs that are currently running. Now, another thing with programs that are currently running or haven't been is in Windows XP, click on Start and then click on Run. In Vista or 7, just type MSCONFIG, MSCONFIG. Now, this is a program within Windows to see what's actually running whenever we start our computer for the first time or once we select Restart. So under Startup, there's a whole list of programs. Now you can check and uncheck these. The window can't get much larger, so you'll have to play around with these little lines. But for instance, Google Drive I want to run when I start Windows. My Synapse pointing device, that is my touchpad itself. let's go down here to the bottom. Evernote. If I didn't want Evernote to run whenever I start Windows, I would just simply uncheck that box and select apply once I went through everything. Now, my other rule of thumb for this, if you don't know what it is, leave it running. If you are more curious about what it may be, look under the manufacturer, look under the command, maybe go to that area of your computer and run that program and see what actually happens. If it's a game or a program that you don't need running whenever Windows starts, just simply uncheck that. So for instance, I haven't done this in a while, so I could do this. I'll uncheck some of these. I don't need Google Update. I mean, I could or it doesn't matter. I'm just going to uncheck a few of these, and we don't need that. I suggest uncheck Adobe Acrobat Reader, a lot of those things within Adobe, just because you don't need them to run as soon as you start Windows. And then simply click apply, click OK. It's going to prompt me for a restart. I will exit without a restart, but if you select restart, it'll simply just restart your computer and then give you another message stating that you've disabled things. Just click OK, do not show this again. Make sure Windows is running correctly. If you have an issue after doing that, you want to start in safe mode, and I'll put some steps down in the description if you have an issue with that, and just simply go check back all the boxes and maybe one at a time until you find out what works for you. But again, I would not select anything if you don't know what it is to not run. The same thing within program files. Don't remove something if you don't know what it is. So that should hopefully help. Again, if you've never done it before, it's going to take a while for the first time, but once you keep going with it, it'll run smoother and faster every time. I'll post some other videos of programs not within Windows to allow you to run a little bit faster, but this is stuff built in within Windows, and I hope it helped. Hope it'll speed up your computer a little bit. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.